Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, we are taking a look at this brand new titanium frame set from Bossi, which is their Strada SS. I am extremely excited to get this frame set built up. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing just exactly who Bossi is, what their philosophy is as well. We're going to talk about the Strada SS, just what that frame set is all about. We're going to talk about the price. We're going to dive into some of their production quality and just the overall ethos on that, the weight, fit and finish, and then of course my plans for this build. So without further ado, let's begin. So first and foremost, who is Bossi? So Bossi is a bike company based in Sydney, Australia, and James Bossi being their managing director. Now their philosophy is pretty simple, which is to hold themselves to the highest standards possible to produce the best quality titanium frame they absolutely can. Now, despite the fact that they are a small company, they really push their suppliers in China who are using some of the advanced manufacturing processes to make Bossi's vision a reality. Now, Bossi is a premium and bespoke level brand. There's no doubt about that, and we're going to discuss why a little bit later on. And I just cannot stress enough how much the folks over at Bossi really obsess over the details in the production of the frames. Now, James Bossi and myself, we've spent hours on video conferences, WhatsApp, email, basically nerding out over all the various technical aspects of titanium. And I very rarely get the opportunity to speak on such an intimate level, one-on-one with these high-level brands. And this whole entire process of communicating back and forth took about 8 weeks. Now, even just for the frame sizing, which in my case, I went with the size 56, I also sent over James my professional bike fit data, and he was able to create an AutoCAD mock-up of the frame set using my data points. And so even if their off-the-shelf sizing doesn't work for you, Bossi can arrange to have a bespoke frame made if you prefer. Now, full disclosure, Bossi, they did send me out this frame and the group set for review. And I do want to touch on this point briefly because the bike is expensive. Both my YouTube channel as well as the brands that I work with, all of this is a business at the end of the day, as you guys know. The brands ultimately, they partner with content creators to market their products. And most brands, they just want to maximize their sales, which there's nothing wrong with this, but they could not care less whether or not I actually use the products in my videos. However, with Bossi, the reason why they contacted me personally is because they are very, very particular on how they want their products presented online. So basically, in a nutshell, they really wanted someone who was going to actually ride their bikes. As you guys know, if you follow my Strava or you follow my Instagram, I ride my bikes a lot, usually at least 10,000 miles / 16,000 kilometers every single year. So they really wanted someone who was going to be using their bikes long term, as well as being able to appreciate their overall ethos. Now, for myself, despite the fact that I may or may not have the largest social media following or have a lot of subscribers, maybe I should have more, maybe I should have less, who knows? But the reality is I do ride my bike a lot. And so my value add has always come with the fact that I ride my bike a lot, and I also have a very strong engagement and connection within the cycling community. And so I'm very flattered that Bossi reached out to me. And this particular frame is really just a testament to all of your support out there. So I really thank you so much. Next up, what is the Strada SS? So this is their flagship titanium performance frame set. It has tire clearance up to 35C tires. It has a 3D printed SRAM UDH dropouts, T47 bottom bracket. Both the head tube and the C-tube junctions are 3D printed to optimize strength. And then the shape of the frame has some aerodynamic details to it, as you can see, with the D-shaped hydroform down tube, head tube, as well as the C-tube. Now, moving right along, let's talk about price. All right, here we go. So the frame set alone option is $5,139 USD at the time of this video. And Bossi does offer up complete bike builds as well, including the bespoke frame sets as well, as I mentioned earlier. Now, Bossi has a very comprehensive page on their website, which really highlights why a customer would choose them over some of the cheaper alternatives. And the question you might be asking is, why am I even going with the titanium frame to begin with? Well, believe it or not, a lot of people, especially here locally in Chicago, they've been asking me to do a titanium bike build for years. So here we are. Titanium is lightweight, it's strong, and it doesn't rust. However, titanium is not exactly the easiest material to deal with, and this is exactly where Bossi comes in. So next up, I just want to talk a little bit about comparing Bossi's ethos and their quality control versus some of the competition out there. Now, of course, this is not intended to bash any of the other brands out there, but rather it's just for context. And as you guys know, I've said this plenty of times, is I'm not an engineer. I don't really know anything about that. So I'm not going to go into anything too deep divey, but let's just get into it a little bit. So first and foremost, I'm going to put some pictures on the screen and you're going to kind of get to see a compare and contrast with the quality of welds from what Bossi offers versus some of what their competition offers. So you'll see that these are Bossi's welds before polishing. Now, the discoloration and distortion that you see with some of the alternatives, that's a product of manufacturing imperfections. Things like gas shielding, dust contaminants floating around near the welds, unregulated humidity and heat. These are all the things that you won't see because the factory will have polished these imperfections, things like that bluish and purple colors, they will have polished those colors away. However, for Bossi, they will only accept colors of pure white or light straw. So what that means is if you see any colors that have blue or purple, Bossi will simply bend that entire frame set all together. So you got to imagine that because Bossi has a high rate of bending or tossing frames due to these imperfections like blue and purple, that means that the factory has to charge them more for their production. So like with other brands that are even in the same factory, a lot of these other brands in these factories, they don't even have the same levels of requirements. So what that means is that they're able to charge less for the frame sets. Now, according to Bossi, there are only 3 other brands in the same factory that have similar levels of quality control when it comes to their production and frames. And Bossi says that the same factory produces for about 50 brands total. So you figure they are, a boutique brand, they are a bespoke brand, and because their quality control is so high, all of these things add up to the overall cost. So that explains, at least in a nutshell, why their frames cost so much. In addition to that cost too, you also get a 50-year warranty with the frames, which I don't know how you can exactly substantiate that for 50 years, but that is what they offer. And then before you decide to purchase your frame, Bossi will sit down with you and have a direct consultation for you to make sure the sizing is correct. If you want to spec any specific components, they'll do all that with you. So again, this is very much a bespoke experience.
All right, guys, I have a hilarious story for you. So if you've been following my channel for some time, you know that whenever I'm weighing out a brand new set of wheels or a frame set, I always feature a classic vinyl LP from my collection. So for this Bossi Strada SS titanium frame set, I was trying to figure out which LP will make sense for this video. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I just randomly, arbitrarily picked a record from my collection, and I found this one right here. Men at Work, Business as Usual, with the classic song Down Under. Do you come from a land down under? Anyway, so I'm listening to the song, I'm listening to the record, and I'm like, bro, these cats kind of have an accent. So I go to Google Men at Work and bro, they are from Australia. The very first LP I chose is a band from Australia. So that lets you know that this video and this frame set was meant to be. All right, so let's go ahead and weigh out this frame set. Bossi Strada SS titanium in a size 56, 1,841 grams. 1,841 grams. And that is for a size 56 frame set. Next up is the uncut fork. Uncut fork is 418 grams. 418 grams. You see that? And then finally we have the seat post with the clamp as well. Seat post clamp, 213 grams. 213 grams, which gives us a grand total for the whole entire frame set, 2,472 grams. So let's continue.
Let's talk about fit and finish. It's difficult to highlight this on camera, but I detect that the edges on the seat post wedge have been chamfered. Why this is important is because when you go to install the seat post wedge into the frame, that means you won't be scratching up and slicing up your seat post, something that I found in some of the other frames in the past that have used this similar wedge design. So good job, Bossi, for really considering such a small yet important detail. It's just one of the many things in terms of fit and finish that comes with purchasing a frame set of this quality. Taking a look inside the headset area, everything is nice and level. You can tell that there was a lot of attention towards sanding everything nice and level. Literally no sharp edges anywhere for where the bearings are going to seat. And you can also see some of the handiwork inside of the frame as well. Very nice, very clean. Now moving on to the bottom bracket area, everything looks very well sanded and faced. The quality looks really, really good. Even the threads themselves, this is the cleanest set of threads that I have ever seen in a T47 standard bottom bracket on any frame. There is one thing though I do want to highlight, and this is specific to metal frames. So obviously we're going to be using a threaded T47 bottom bracket, but pay attention to the positioning of the ports for either the Di2 cable or even the hydraulic cable that goes to the rear brake. What I've noticed is it's going to be difficult to get that sleeve of the bottom bracket to sit square inside the frame, because once you start routing that cable, the cable is going to be so tight that it could potentially bend or at least put that bottom bracket sleeve out of place to where you won't be able to put it in squarely to the other side of the bottom bracket. It is possible, it is doable, and quite frankly, I don't really know what the solution is when it comes to using this T47 style on metal frames, but it is something worthy to note. Next up are the mounting points for the rear caliper. Same story as before, guys. Everything has been very, very nicely sanded down. Everything is really clean. And you can even see that they've even made some considerations, Bossi that is, to hollow out some of these areas back here. It could be just for a weight savings measurement. It could be for routing the cables. But again, there's clearly a lot of thought and care that went into this titanium frame set. Very, very nice. Fun fact. So when my dad moved to this country from his hometown of Belize, he spent 40 years as a tradesman welder. So I'm tempted to take some pictures of this frame set and show it to him so that he can give me his opinion and thoughts on what he thinks about the quality of these welds. Let me know in the comments down below. From what I can tell, in my very amateurish opinion, these look really, really good. I don't see any concerns. You can clearly tell that there has been some efforts to make everything look nice and neat, but let me know in the comments. As is such the trends now these days, this Strada SS is using a universal derailleur hanger, which is nice. I myself am going with Shimano, so I don't have to worry about that. But it is nice knowing that should something ever happen to this hanger, you should have no problems with finding a replacement. One thing I do want to note is this is not my preferred port position on the frame, especially because I'm running Shimano versus wireless SRAM. I do kind of prefer the port to be up top. I don't know if this is something that metal frames can do, because I've noticed the same thing on some of my other metal frames in the past. Again, it's just a subjective personal opinion, but it is something that I should note for you guys. But the good news with going with Shimano Di2 over SRAM is my frame set came with this optional direct mount derailleur hanger, which is nice. So even if having a direct mount hanger, even if it does not offer a crisper shifting experience, this does at the very least make it a little bit easier to remove the rear wheel when your chain is attached. So good job, Bossi, on that front. At this point on my YouTube channel, I have reviewed about 20 to 25 different bikes, and this is for sure the cleanest looking caliper mounts that I have seen on any bike that I've tested thus far. And that includes my SL8 Tarmac, which I would say is probably a close second to this, as well as my Giant Propel. And funny thing with my Propel is I had to get a replacement fork out of warranty. And when I got that replacement fork, Giant did not face the caliper mount. So I struggled with disc rub for a couple of weeks until I got it all sorted out. But this by far, super duper clean, the cleanest I've ever seen. A+. Now let's talk about Seatpost clamps, or in this case, Seatpost wedges. When you start mixing different materials, in this case, a carbon Seatpost with a metal frame, there is a chance that the Seatpost could slip. And this is usually the case when you are using a wedge versus using something like a traditional 31.6 Seatpost clamp. However, the good news is I've actually spoken to a couple of customers of this frame set, and I'm happy to report that they have not experienced a single Seatpost slip. So good job again for Bossi for considering this, because I'm sure they know that this could potentially be a pain point for customers. I am extremely impressed with the details and fit and finish on this titanium frame set. You figure since it's unpainted, That means it's very, very difficult to hide the imperfections. And clearly this frame is void of any imperfections. So having this frame in hand, having spent hours talking to the owners of Bossi, this frame set is a labor of love, and this is what you should expect at this price range. You should expect, basically you should be expecting perfection. And from what I can tell so far, the quality is really, really good, and I'm just super excited to get this thing built up. Ultimately, you guys can be the judge by looking at the pictures in the video. There is one thing I do want to mention though, is that the frame comes with the single bolt design for the saddle rail clamps. This isn't exactly my favorite design. Personally, I prefer the 2-bolt design for the clamp just because it offers a little bit more ease of adjustment. And finally, guys, my plans for the build. All right, let's go ahead and talk about it, since this will be my first time ever running Dura Ace. Why am I using such an expensive group set? Well, when you look at Bossi's overall ethos, which is basically trying to deliver the best titanium frame set they possibly can from a factory out in the Far East China, it's clear that they are a boutique high-level brand. And so basically, they don't really want their frames to be showcased and featured using, in my case, like first generation SRAM ETAP or some sort of mechanical Ultegra group set. So a frame of this quality really does require a group set to match. So kudos to Bossi for sending me out this group set. I know it wasn't cheap, but don't worry, I'm gonna do it justice. So when I originally told Bossi the group set I was going to use with this frame, they basically looked at me probably wanting to punch me in the face and said, you will not be using that group set with our frame. So what we'll do is we'll send you out a premium group set of Dura Ace. And again, this just highlights how they really want their frames to be presented online to you guys, the viewers. And then as far as wheels go, I have a killer set of OEM wheels in a 65mm depth, and I'll talk about those wheels in a whole separate video. But overall, guys, I'm super excited to get this built up. I love the clean lines of the frame and even just the nature of titanium or just metal frames in general. This is a fantastic option for a travel bike. But most importantly, I'm really just thrilled to find out just exactly how titanium feels out on the road dynamically. So that's gonna wrap up today's video, guys. Once again, huge thank you to Bossi for sending me out the frame and the group set. I'm so excited to get this built up. I have some races, I have some events coming up. Once those get out of the way, we'll get cracking on this build, and then we will get this thing tested out on the road. Questions, comments, and concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I will check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.